Hello, everyone, and welcome back. And I'm with the lovely Lisa Glanz. How are you, Lisa?
Hey, everyone. I'm very well, thank you. And you, Tom? Haven't seen you in ages.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
We missed you. But welcome back. I'm really excited for this session. Your sessions are always very fun, and I can't think of anything more appropriate than drawing a cute bear. And I saw the bear in question, and he's very cute. He's very lovable.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so today what I thought I'd do is just use the bear as a kind of like a base to show off the brushes and what you can do with them. So look, we might end up with a dog's breakfast at the end, but the idea is to show you all the different techniques that you can use and apply in your work to anything, any subject matter. And I just thought a bear is a good place to start. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, without further ado, over to you, Lisa.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll quickly just run through some of the brushes and how I've grouped them just to help you. So you'll see under each brush category, there's a name just to help you kind of understand what the intention of that brush was, and also obviously help you find them much quicker. So we got a whole bunch of sketching brushes that have various sort of textures. I kind of use the very light one for my groundwork, and then the others are basically used for, the finishing offline work. And then there's a whole bunch of fillers, and these work really well both on their own, if you just want to kind of use them as they are, or if you want to layer them, they work really, really well. So, for example, if we use the smeary grain as our base color and then the light grain on top of that as just like a slightly different tone in color, that works really, really well. And then moving on to, there's a whole lot of texture brushes, and that's really great if you want to enhance that texture even more. And I normally use these on a clipping mask, which really works well. And then there's some large background brushes. So those are really great for filling in like large area instead of like wasting time and, taking like a really small brush. This is great for filling in large areas very quickly and still having some good texture. And then we always need shader brushes, don't we? So these are kind of like different grains and grunginess. And these I also recommend using on a clipping mask. And then we have to have stamps, in my opinion. Yeah, so these build-up stamps are really cool because if you guys are familiar with my other packs, I like to include build-up stamps. So the way they work is essentially, each time you stamp, they just keep kind of building on themselves. And that, again, is really cool for clipping mask work. Just get rid of that. And then we just have some kind of texture brush stamps that are also great for, a little bit of interest and versatility. And then some really cute patterns that goes really well, I think, with whimsical drawing. And there's a whole bunch here. I just want to mention this Scribble Mania. I made a little boo-boo with that one. There was a slight line in that, but since then the brush set has been updated. So if you are using that and you see a little line, so just re-download your purchase again. It should be all sorted out. Okay, so we're going to start by drawing just our sort of rough outline, just a framework for our bear. And as I mentioned before, I like using the light sketcher. It's something that basically, it's not, you can either keep it in your final drawing, which I sometimes like doing, or this is just for your groundwork. So we're just going to start by drawing a butternut shape. And if you can't see this line work, I recommend that you view this full screen, because it is probably going to be quite light on screen. Oh, Tom, did we mention that the palette is available? Have we mentioned that yet?
Yeah, we have. It was in the chat.
So we pretty much all know how to draw butternut, I think. So we're going to have like a skinny little top, and then it's going to come down, and this will be his fat little body. And don't stress at this stage about your line work, because it's literally we're just feeling out the shapes at this stage. And then I'm just going to add, he's going to be wearing kind of like a really thick layered scarf. So about that would be our top. And that's our bottom line of our scarf. And then at the bottom, we're just going to follow this outside line and just bring it down both sides. So that's these little leggies. And then just like a funnel, meeting the bottom and adding some really tiny feet. So if you want a little bit of humor in your character, definitely play with proportions. So his feet are really minute for the size of his body. Obviously, in reality, he wouldn't survive. So it's really, if you want to like give the audience a little bit of humor, then yeah, it's a great way to actually add some interest. Okay, so from the bottom of his scarf, we're going to add kind of like sausages. So those are his arms. Just want to make sure they're in line.
He kind of looks like a bowling pin.
Yes, exactly. Wow, never thought of that. Yes. Okay. Just going to add some ears. So these are, obviously you can go round, you can go, I don't know, really small, but I'm going to use sort of a teardrop shape. And just roughly getting an idea of his nose placement, which is about there. If I'm going too fast at any stage, Tom, just let me know.
I think it's perfect so far, thank you.
Okay.
How does he already look cute? You've only done a few lines.
Okay, so he's wearing kind of like a waistcoat. Well, not kind of, it is a waistcoat. Okay, so we're looking for the middle line. But again, it's your character, so you don't have to be in the middle. And just 2 diagonal lines. Another line going up. And a little pocket just on the side. So by me kind of leaving that short, not following to the end, gives the illusion that the top lip is lifting up. So that's just a little tip. And then we just want to add some layers to his scarf. And he's got kind of like an overlapping bit here. And the other one does something like that. Okay, so that's our groundwork. I think that gives us an idea of what he's going to look like. I'm just going to bring it up a dash. Oh, I just wanted to mention the size of my canvas. So I like using a really large canvas. Well, it's not that large. It's 400 mils by 400 mils, which is about 4,700 pixels. And I also designed the brush set for large canvas use because I wanted you to be able to, if you wanted to sell your work, I wanted you to be able to use it on a really large canvas so you don't have to worry about brushes being too small for you to work with. Okay.
Perfect.
We are going to add another layer, and I'll bring that layer that I just created above it. I'm going to set that to multiply just to give me an idea of what I'm dealing with. And I'm still using this original sort of dark brown. I'm just going to use the hard pencil, and on that new layer, we're just going to start sketching out some line work. So this is going to be basically our final line work. And you'll see I'm not going to necessarily fill in every single line. I'm just going to do it here and there. But places like his nose. And I'm really going scribbly because I like that look. You might want to go neater. And where the scarf meets his body, we're just going to draw a little loop. So that gives it an illusion that it's bigger than his body. And you can decide how rough or precise you want your line work. I like mine quite sketchy. And again, so for each layer, we're just going to draw that loop. And some rough folds. And I'm varying my pencil pressure just to get variation in the stroke.
Did you say you had given this lovely chap a name?
Oh, not yet. We need to do that.
We do. The community are always very good at naming.
Yes, they are.
Your animals. What do we think, design cutters? What is this affable bear called?
Okay, so coming over to one of my favorite brushes, the grimy, shy pencil. Okay, so we're just going to literally give him some funny little spiky hair. So I'm still on that same layer. And you can decide how much you want to give him. Again, experiment and play with the pressure of this pencil. Okay, I think that layer is pretty done. Okay, I'm going to set, yes, I'm going to set that layer to multiply, the one that we just did. And I'm going to set the very top, that sort of sketchy layer, I'm going to set that to color burn. And I'm creating a new layer. And those two sketch layers are sitting above that new layer. Again, I'm still using that dark kind of browny color. And I'm coming down to one of the filler brushes called the Canvas Grunge. And I'm just going to literally roughly add color over his entire body. So you might be wondering, that's like really super weird. This is basically a technique I developed and wanted to show, basically wanted to show customers who bought this how easy it is to create really cool texture without too much effort. So starting with a darker color underneath your other brushes is a really great way and a quick way to achieve that. And the idea is to be as rough as you want. So I kind of like that, those kind of gritty bits.
Have you got a moment for some bear names, Lisa?
Yes. Definitely.
Okay, we've got some really good ones actually. Just scrolling through. All right, we have, who was the first one? Reggie.
Oh,
I might not get a chance to read out all of them, but yeah, I'll let you pick from the shortlist, Lisa. Ferdinand, rather.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. Humphrey.
Humphrey's good because he looks like Humpty Dumpty in a way. Yeah.
We had Butternut, just like his shape.
Oh, that's so cute.
Barnaby.
Mr. Butternut.
There's loads though. There are some really, really excellent ones. Thank you everyone for sending them in.
That's so cute.
Gaston, Ralph. What do you think, Lisa? What are you leaning towards?
The first one and butternut. I know that's weird because he isn't a butternut, but
you got to pick one.
Can we calling you Mr. Butternut?
Okay, Mr. Butternut. There you go. Mr. Butternut, it is.
Okay, so I've created a new layer, and that's sitting now above this dark layer that I just done. And we're going to use a creamy color. And I'm coming over to, no, we're not using the creamy color. We are using kind of a brownie, the next sort of lighter color. And I'm going to use the Cosmos. So this is just for Bear, the actual sort of color of Bear. And you'll see that layering is creating a nice effect because you're going to start seeing the underneath texture coming through. Hope the screen is showing that. And you'll notice I'm quite rough and I'm not really particular about staying in the lines because I quite like that look. And we're just going to use arms. And you can decide how much texture you want to show through. Maybe you want to go over it again. It's up to you. Okay, on a new layer, I'm going to work on his little scarf. So using that pinky color. Again, I'm using Cosmos. Okay, so now you'll start seeing, remember we changed that very top sketch layer, that thin sort of sketch layer to color burn. So now you'll start seeing that line work coming through. And that's the kind of stuff I like in my work. But yeah, you can decide to leave it off if it's not your style. And I'm just literally using a lot of strokes because I want variation in the texture. So now we can see, because the color is quite a lot lighter than the brown, how much texture is coming through. And I'm going to show you how you can lessen that if you're finding it a little too strong. But I quite like it. But today is all about showing you options. So you might find that's too much. You can either go over it again with the same brush, or we can use a different brush, like the smeary grain, and then just here and there, take some of that away. Okay, so I'm going to stick to the smeary grain, and we're going to add some color to his little waistcoat. So again, on a new layer, I'm going to use a nice mustard color. And the great thing about the smeary grain is the more strokes that you apply, the more texture you see. So that's why I'm going to be doing a lot of sort of lifting of my pencil as I go. And also you can decide if you want to have almost a pattern to those strokes. So you'll see, you'll start developing, you know, your pattern of each stroke that you make. So that's also a nice way to add interest.
That looks amazing. It's like liquid gold.
Yeah. And again,
these
very
are really, I love the texture, Lisa, of these brushes.
Oh, good.
Incredible.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, so vary your pressure as well as you work, because that's also quite fun. And when I come close to another color, I'm sort of leaving a gap. And that gives it that sort of painterly look.
And this feels like a technique that anyone could really do.
Oh, absolutely. And it's quite cathartic, I must say, because it's like you're not really doing anything skillful. I don't think.
Well, it's kind of like paint by numbers once you've got the sketch.
Exactly.
But the brush is doing the work. Like it looks like so much work has gone into texturing it, but it's the brush doing that for you.
Exactly, precisely. And that's exactly what I wanted. I just want to quickly add some here. And okay, so we're going to add his little pants. And another great thing about applying the same base color is that it gives the whole piece kind of a uniformity to it. So that's a good way to, how do I say, like marry your colors together.
Yeah. I have been trying to craft a bit of a spring wardrobe, actually, so I'm getting inspiration from this. Might see me popping down the shops like this.
Okay, so you'll notice that as I come to the edge, some places I'm being neater, and that contrast of the neatness and the grubby original work, line work that we did, I think it looks quite nice. Again, you can totally decide how much texture and roughness you want. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to stamp over his pants at a later stage, which you'll see all this texture is almost pointless at this stage, but I wanted to show you all the variations that you can do. So this is still a great exercise for you to do, so you can get used to the brushes. And again, you might want to vary the look and do something like that. Okay, so I'm going to add some details to his face. Again, on a new layer, and I'm working just above his body color. I'm going to use that pale cream. I'm going to use Cosmos, and I'm just going to add a little snout area for him. And then maybe some cheeks. So sort of a pale pinky color. Coming down to one of our stamps. And I'm just going to test the size. Oh, that's actually maybe a bit bigger. Let's see. So these are set to each time you stamp be in a different position. But you can see, so it doesn't look like it is a stamp. It looks more organic. I'm just going to redo that one. Okay. I think that looks like it's getting there. Okay, so we're going to now add some extra details and texture and shadow and things like that. and a pattern or 10. Okay, so on a new layer above the scarf, I'm going to use the same color we used for the pants. So what you want to do in a color palette, you want to obviously repeat your color again somewhere else, just so your eye flows around your character, and adding details like a pattern is a great way to do that. So I'm going to use a polka dots, and I just want to test the size. Yeah, the size looks good. Okay, so I'm just randomly applying that pattern, and then I'm going to set that to a clipping mask. So that will clip to my scarf. And then I'm going to do the same for his pants, adding a new layer above the pants. Coming down to the stripes. I want these stripes, though, to be... Okay, so currently, let me just show you. Currently, they're running horizontally. I actually want them to be running vertically. So to do that, I'm just going to tap on the brush once, come over to my grain, and then press edit. And taking 2 fingers, I'm just going to rotate that. And I'm hit done. And I also want to just change the scale slightly. So I just want to take the scale up a dash. And let's have a look. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so I'm just randomly applying that pattern because we're going to clip it. And I also want to just bring the opacity down a dash so it's not so strong. And then for his little waistcoat, we're going to use a stamp. I'm going to use the 3 stripes. Just want to stamp once, see the size. I think that looks about right. Okay, so we're just going to rotate that. So using my transform tool, I'm just going to rotate that and just move that into position. And then I'm just going to duplicate that. Again, transform tool, rotate it just for some variation. I think that looks about right. And then we're just going to merge that down so we don't have too many layers. And then I'm going to clip that. And what I forgot to show you is the stamp for his pants. So on a new clipping layer, so I'm above the pants, I'm going to use the darker color. And one of these sort of painted background stamps. I'm just going to stamp once. First, I'm not going to clip because I just want to see what it looks like. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to clip that. I need to just clip the other one again. And I think what I'm going to do is just bring the opacity down a dash just to play around with the color until I'm happy. You could even play around with the blending modes, but I'm going to leave it on normal for now. Okay, so we're going to move on and add some shadow on. Well, actually, first one I want to do is just add some texture over the whole body using one of the texture brushes. So on the new layer above everything, I am going to use, let's try the pinky color and see what happens. So coming over to one of our texture brushes, I'm using the dry streaks, and I'm going to set that to color burn. Here and there for some variation. And you'll see what's nice is because we're using the pink, it goes, you know, it's kind of darkening the pink color, but it's adding a really interesting effect over, you know, his jacket that isn't pink. So that's also a great way to add some variation. Okay, so I'm going to add some highlights. And this layer is going to be set to add. So what that's going to be is like quite a bright effect. And using another one of the texture brushes, this time when we use the faint strokes. And I'm just here and there. I want it quite big. Going to add some sort of texture. So I'm concentrating on this side of his body. And we're going to bring the opacity down in a minute. And you can decide how much you want to add. You can even do something like using a grain brush if you really want strong highlights, you know, sort of on the tips of things. It's entirely up to you, but I just wanted to show you the possibilities. And just to bring that opacity down. And then again, if we're finding that that highlight is too strong, because that's not really too realistic, we can always erase it. But I'm going to use the light grain for the eraser because I want to keep some of it and just take some away here and there. So that's a great way just to bring something down that you're finding is a little too strong.
That adds a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think highlights can really make quite a big difference to your finished piece. So we're going to move on to just a bit of shadow. I'm using a purple. Believe it or not, purple is actually quite a good neutral shadow color to use in most things. But this will particularly work well with our color palette. So I'm just going to set that to multiply because I want it to blend in with everything underneath it. And then just, using, let's see, I'm going to use the canvas grunge for this one and just bring down the opacity a dash. I'm going to start with 50 and see what that looks like. Oops, brush too big. Okay, so obviously our source, light source, is coming this side because we put our highlights that side. So I'm just going to very roughly add some shadow work this side. And you can decide how dark you want it, of course. And I'm just varying my brush pen pressure as I go. Okay, so I'm literally just adding here and there. And all that kind of messiness, all this layering is adding interest. And like I said, I just want to show you everything, and you can tone it down, you can ramp it up. But this is a good starting point. And we can even change the color if you want it darker. I'm just going to go dash darker.
It's really coming together now, isn't it?
Yeah, so all these little details add to your work. To be honest, I often have to remind myself when I start something, when I'm not happy with it, I always say, okay, just keep going. It's going to get better. Because the more you work on a piece, then most of the time it goes better.
It's amazing because some of your work is obviously stunning, but I would say it's more flat than this. This really has quite a lovely depth to it.
Yes,
with the shading.
Definitely. So you can decide, you know, depending on your style, how much you want to add.
Fiona was just asking for clarity on what brush you're using right now, Lisa.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I swapped. We originally started with the grunge canvas for the shadow, but then I swapped to the smeary grain. So don't be afraid to experiment with different textures, especially with shadow. Shadow's quite nice to kind of mess around with that. And just finally, for the shadow, I just want to add kind of like a standing shadow. Let's try the dirty grain. And going back to the original color that we had. And again, just varying my brush pressure. See, now for me, that's a little bit too much. So I'm just going to take some away. We still have that on the light grain, so that's really helpful. Okay, so I think what I want to do now is, what I want to also show you how you can kind of layer the patterns. Okay, so above those little stripes that we did, I'm going to add another layer, and I'm also going to clip it. Coming down to our patterns, I'm going to use the diamond tartan pattern, and I'm going to probably stick to that dark brown. I think the size looks about right. Again, don't forget to adjust the scale of any of these patterns depending on what you want to do.
That looks so good.
Okay, so another thing to just remind you that you can really, so you've got your pattern, but you can also embellish it. So for example, on this one, what we could easily do is use one of our texture brushes, and we could fill in the pattern, or we could use a different color to fill in the pattern. Oh, it's the same color as his top, doesn't help. You know, you could kind of go every second one. So that's a great way to make it even more customized. And I'll probably set that to multiply, and then just bring the opacity down so it looks like it's part of the jacket. And because that's unrealistic, the pattern wouldn't kind of run over the pocket like that. I'm just going to erase that, but just change my brush. That looks better. Okay, so you get the idea. You could literally fill in kind of every second one, and that'll make it even cuter. Okay, so what I want to do now is show you some background work that you can do. And just changing my background color to a really dark brown. So we're sticking with the same sort of theme of palette. And above that background, I'm going to create a new layer. And just bring that, hey, behave yourself. Okay, so using that cream, coming down to one of our background brushes, I'm going to start with a vintage grain. And literally just randomly, you'll see the brushes are super large.
God, that's so
really
satisfying.
Handy. Yeah. It's like, did that fast.
Let it snow.
Okay, so I've just changed it to the scribbly grain. And then these are obviously also pressure sensitive in terms of how much ink you get on the page. So as I get closer to my character, I'm leaving a gap. Because I really want the entire piece to look handcrafted as much as possible. Swapping again.
This is a proper like bear snow angel.
Yeah. Oh, I should have done that actually. So you can see this is a great opportunity for you to decide how much texture you actually want to leave and show through. So I'm just going to move on to showing what the edges, what you can do around the edges. I'm going to start with the canvas grunge. And what I like doing is, again, you'll see I'm using a lot of strokes. And as I get closer, I'm just lifting the pressure of my pencil. And I'm leaving a little bit of a gap. So that gives it that painterly effect.
How did you figure that technique out? Is that just by observing analog paintings?
Yes, because I wanted to find a quick way to achieve the same thing. I'm always trying to find quick shortcuts, to be honest. So yeah, I also wanted to be able to convey that in the brushes, if that makes sense. I wanted to basically create brushes that could achieve that without too much, fussing.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question that you might hate me for?
Oh my goodness, go for it, Tom.
Because I obviously am very much the newbie here and you are the master, but would it make sense, instead of doing the background up to the edge, instead to take like a darker line and do an outline on the bear itself? Because then you could move the bear around on the canvas in the background, whereas
I see what
right
you're
now
saying.
you couldn't. Yeah.
Yes. So you could do that, but you'll be amazed how different the effect is. So just by creating we're almost kind of going backwards, and that backwards application is what's giving it that really sort of painterly effect. So you wouldn't really get all that interesting, how do I say, imperfections. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
If you were just using line work. You probably, I don't know. That's just my opinion, but yeah.
No, that makes total sense, to be honest. And yeah, I can see some of the texture happening on the background. You couldn't really do that with a simple outline stroke.
Yeah. Also, you could even achieve the sort of similar results if you, I guess, if you just did the whole. Instead of us going the bear in a dark color, you could have done the whole background and then worked on top of that. But that was just to show you if you were doing an isolated bear. So that's also a fast way to get the same results.
Because
here, if you think about it, we can play around with the lightness of that texture. And I'm just going to change to smeary grain just so you can see the effect of that. Again, lots of line work. I mean, strokes. And you can decide how much you want to leave, how much you want to add. And I'm just sort of leaving things here and there. Zoom out, you can start getting an idea.
this is looking very cool. And the subject just starts to pop off the background now.
Yeah.
By the way, hey to Jordan. Thank you for the kind words in the chat, and great to see you. Jordan is literally one of our, I don't know, maybe one of our first 100 community members.
Oh, wow.
From way back in like 2013.
Wow. You must be doing something right, Tom. You definitely are.
Our community are amazing. As are yours, though. You're such a lovely bunch.
I know. I support you. Definitely, yeah. And the talent is quite something. I can't be, often I look at what people are doing with the brushes, and I'm blown away.
Must be so rewarding.
It is.
Like obviously we've collaborated on a few products with you and many other people, and anything that we've had our hand in, the most rewarding bit is seeing it out in the wild, being turned into unexpectedly just delightful, wonderful projects.
Yes. And it's so weird. Like it's, I suppose it's arrogant to assume that you would kind of know exactly how you could use it, but it's amazing how people push it beyond what you originally thought.
So true.
Yeah, so you get the idea about how we can give it that painterly look, and you could really add some lovely strokes. Again, leave as much texture as you want. But hopefully that gives you an idea.
Beautiful.
And
dare I say it, Lisa?
Yes.
We've known each other for a lot of years.
Yes.
You are a different level of illustrator now. And you were already just one of the best people I knew back in the day. But when I look at your work now, I think it's like not only the characters themselves seem to have that much more personality and dynamism, but I think it's the confidence in the details. And I say this because I was kind of flicking through some of your older packs from 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I love them still. But then I jump on a live with you today, and I'm like, wow, this genuinely is like a whole next level.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I try and obviously improve and study and take courses and things like that. So yeah, I suppose we're all learning every single day. You never really reach your full potential, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true though.
Okay, so I'm going to show you how you can, I know this is like, as I said, maybe too much, but I want to show you everything. We could add some nice texture stamps on top of that. So I'm going to use the foam grit. And I nearly forgot to show
I have to read this comment from Bren, who is one of our absolute favorite design cutters. But Bren says, Lisa, you seriously deserve an award for this brush set.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I'm glad you
Actually,
like it.
I know the team are behind the scenes right now. I feel like maybe we should do like some kind of award thing, just shouting out some of the most innovative packs created during the year and different categories. I don't know. If you like it, team, feel free to make a note. We can talk about that.
Okay, so I love the Shy Canvas brush. Okay, so I'm going to just bring that opacity down and maybe even set it to linear burn. So coming over to my original line work layer, which I need to find. I think it's that one. Yes. So what I like about this brush, I literally just here and there use it to add, I suppose now it's kind of getting lost in the background. I don't know if you can see that, Tom. But what I do is I add it here and there, and it adds, looks like dirt, but it's stylized dirt. If there's such a word.
It's a good name for a brush. Stylized
dirt. And you can even use something like a stamp, say on the edges like that, and then just kind of bring down the grunge if you think it's too much. Maybe what I'll do is I'm going to add a new layer, turn that off, so you can see it that way. So yeah, with that, we just go back to my original layer, which was that one. Yes. So what I like is just, kind of grunging the edges. And we can use the grimy Shy pencil, which I love. So that's also a great way to add some really rough texture. You can really accentuate the line work and still keep that roughness. Sometimes I like going over the lines. So these are all options. And ways to add interest and a sort of handcrafted look to your work.
Incredible.
So that guy, I think, is too much. Let's put the other one back on. Yep. How does that look?
That looks like Mr. Butternut is ready for a night out on the town, and a very stylish one at that.
Absolutely. Cool.
Again, I want to give a massive shout out for Lisa's new brush set, which once more you can find below this live stream, or if you're watching the replay, you can find it in the video description. You can see an outpouring of support and love for you, Lisa, in the comments.
Amazing. Thank you. Love you all.
And actually, Lisa, if we have 1 minute,
Yes.
would you be willing to share your browser window and actually show the page at Design Cuts for your new pack, just for anyone that hasn't seen the overview?
Okay, so that little bear that you see on the cover, we actually do a tutorial. So part of the pack, you'll get links to those tutorials, which help you. Why aren't you loading? It was already loaded. Oh, goodness me. Obviously, the gremlins are having fun with us today.
They really are.
Yeah. So the
might
bear, as I
load
was
on
saying,
scroll, but yeah.
Yeah. So the bear, as I said, was actually is part of a tutorial that you'll learn how to create, and it just takes you through the steps similar to what we did today, but there's just obviously a couple of changes here and there that you'll see me doing to create that guy. And there we go. Oh, I wanted to mention as well. So the same way I used that dark color today on the bear as a base, I also want to encourage you to experiment with other interesting colors. So, for example, the lion. Oh dear. Oh. There we go. The lion. That actually, I used a really bright pink underneath the mustard. And it's kind of hard to see because it's not zoomed in, but that really gave me some very interesting results. So definitely experiment. And the same with the balloon. I used an orange underneath that pale blue, pale sort of aqua color. And that's also gave me some interesting results. So definitely experiment with that.
Yeah, everyone's loving the lion, by the way.
Cool. Okay, so I wanted to encourage like beginner illustrators. So the set is super forgiving, and you can literally draw such simple characters, and you can still get that like interesting effect to your work, because the brushes basically do quite a lot of work for you in terms of getting that grungy effect without too much effort, hopefully. But you can also use them in really complex work, like this illustration. And you'll see this one, I really did a lot of layering, and I also used, lighting and that kind of stuff to create an atmosphere. And then this just shows you how you can layer the brushes and how they kind of work really well together. And they were designed, each kind of section was designed to work on top of the next one. So, yeah. And there's our bear.
It's so cool.
Those are kind of just the texture brushes and the fillers. Oh, there's the background that we did. And our stamps. And all the patterns that you can play with. And reloading. I think that was pretty much, oh, there we go. Oh, so I think I did mention that, how you can use, especially that light grain. If you just use a slightly different tone in the color, as a sort of top, basically a top color to an underneath one, it gives you a really interesting variation in the final effect. So another way for you to get interesting color combination results. Oh, there you'll see the pattern I added, colored in the little blockies. And you can do more softer illustrations, but still get some texture. Or more really sort of rough, grungy ones, but still get a whimsical finish. Yeah, and those are the tutorials that are included. And that's it.
Amazing. So versatile, so good. And I love that you've included the tutorials as well, because I know how popular those are with our community.
Yes.
So, yeah, amazing. And all of that for $13 is truly ridiculous. So anyone who's on the fence, I would definitely recommend grabbing it, and it's going to benefit your work for years and years to come. But Lisa, keep it up. Thank you.
Thank
all
you.
Right,
thank you,
I
everyone.
think that's all we have time for. I will see you same time next week. Lisa, I can't wait to catch up soon. And thank you again for joining
Definitely.
us. All right.
Pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
So nice to
Take
see you.
care.
Bye.